Hello and welcome. And those darn rentals. There's 4 rentals on my team, a Conqueror, a Grossa Kofest, a Yamato and a Shimakaze, while the enemy team has none. And we all know what it means when you have rentals on your team, right? That's why I'm quite frustrated right now. But then again, I'll still play as well as I can, because you should never give up. Even if you think things aren't going to work out, you should still try your hardest. And we are against the midway, so there's a chance, because a mismatch in CVs can be slightly more important, but of course you can't always make up for everything. It's a battleship heavy game, and that's actually fairly good for me, because I think only Yamato or only Montana on the enemy team is something that I can't do a whole lot of damage to with my AP dive bombers. I dumped the last set of rockets, and I will try to intercept this destroyer before she gets into the cap zone. One downside with a Hakuryu is that you need to start your rocket plane attacks quite early, meaning that you sometimes need to guess, and the guesses don't always work out. This time it worked out fine, and oh my, what? 8,770 damage to that Shimakaze in one drop of rockets. That's 40% of her HP. 40%! That's insane! What the hell? And I mean, that's just one drop. You could technically do 3 of them, right? Yeah, that is ridiculous. Then again, we did have some good RNG there. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. I drop a fighter, so my Shimakaze does not suffer the same result as theirs did. I mean, it is a dive bomber, but still, there's a chance. I'm gonna guess blindly, and I hit. The reason why I guessed that exact spot is because, well, we knew she was inside the B cap, and that she's likely to be in the middle of the circle, more or less. That is towards the middle-ish portion of the smoke circle, and that's why I dropped exactly there. Also, if you're wondering why do I keep dumping my rockets into the ocean, it's because that way those 3 planes that I already used, they're flying back to the ship, so they can't be shot down if I fly into good anti-air. Now I dropped a second set into the ocean too, so that I only have 3 planes, but I think that was a bit of a mistake, because I decided to go after the Henri, and at this point one of my planes is probably gonna get shot down, and then I just deal less damage to the Henri. As you can see, one went down, but I still did 10k damage. Now you have to keep in mind that you can't continue doing 10k every salvo, because when a ship has taken no damage at all, it tends to take a lot more damage on the first few hits. You see this quite often at the start of a game, as a battleship, whatever. You'll often be hit for like 10k damage in the first salvo you take, but then after that, you know, the damage becomes much more reasonable. So, now it's time to go after the Shimakaze, because she apparently decided to go and try to retreat on our side of the map. I guess maybe she was afraid of the Shima. But I will make her life difficult. Let's go, 1 rocket drop. Only 2,000 damage this time. As you can see, the 9k damage was quite lucky. But then again, that probably also has some of the full HP stuff going on. But we're going for round 2 now, and this might actually be enough considering how low HP she is. Even just spotting her might actually be enough though at this point. Let's see, and good night, Shimakaze. I suppose this is something that is in our advantage. Our Shimakaze might be a rental, but she's not at the bottom of the ocean. I suppose technically the enemy Shimakaze isn't quite at the bottom of the ocean yet either. You know, it takes time to sink. But I mean, we're definitely in a better position. Technically we control 2 caps. We just don't get points for one of them because nobody has actually sailed into them. That's why I plotted my course to try to sail into the A cap. I think the Kofest here is actually out of position because she's alone and she would be a prime target for the enemy CV, and I think that she would go down, or she should go down if the CV actually focus fired her. That's why I give her a fighter, because she is the prime target for the CV to attack. Not with torpedo bombers though, but with dive bombers. But for some reason, well, the Midway seems to have finally found my fighters, and I was like, well, what do I do now? Well, the answer to that question is to drop the fighters slightly closer to my fighters, and then just go and go ham. I'm gonna dump some dive bombers into the water, because dive bombers on the Hakuryu are actually the most important one, and the target is going to be this Henri. Because, well, you can citadel her for quite a lot of damage, and hitting a cruiser for 20k with AP dive bombers is slightly more important than hitting a battleship for 20k. And hello, Henri. Oh, you only did something around 10k. Slightly disappointing, but that's okay, we'll just come again. I pulled those planes back since they were fairly low HP. Kind of unhappy with the route my ship is taking, like exactly where I pressed on the map. Problem is, if I try to make it more exact, the autopilot is probably gonna either sail me into the island or just do some really weird maneuver. I have lost a rental Yamato. Those darn rentals. But I mean, we're still equal, and we do hold more caps. Eventually we're gonna take the 8 cap and then we're gonna win, right? I'm gonna try to finish this Grosako first off, but apparently I wasn't even necessary. I dumped the bombs anyway because I'm gonna pull... Actually, I don't know why I dumped them. I suppose it doesn't matter, I just wanted to pull back as quickly as possible. But we hold a definitive advantage in this match. We have a destroyer, they don't have a destroyer. Our Minotaur is low, but we hold map control. I mean, we definitely hold the B cap, and they will have to push into us to take it from us. And we're eventually gonna get the A cap too. Once I get there, or the Minotaur gets there, I'm not sure. Our GK is, in my opinion, still out of position, but there's nothing much he can do about it. If he's out of position at first, you can't teleport across the map to fix it. But for some reason the CV seems to ignore him and tries to go for the DD instead, which I think is a mistake, because at this point the caps are already settled. The destroyer isn't the most important part anymore. I suppose maybe the thinking goes that the Shimakas is going to be a major threat when their battleships try to push into the B cap. I suppose that's true. But I think a GK would be much easier to take out than a DD would be. I think that drop wasn't actually very good, but whatever. I guess I'll go follow up with some dive bombers. Now, I don't actually know what these dive bombers work great against. I have some ideas. From my experience, it didn't work well against the Montana, for example. It worked really well against an Henri, a Yamato, a Des Moines, a Moskva. Most ships, or cruisers and battleships that you care about, it seemed to work great against. They don't work so great when you just fly into the enemy fighter squadron though, and only realize too late like I just did. That's why I pulled back. Because I was completely preoccupied by... I actually don't know what I was preoccupied by. I simply just flew in those planes into their deaths. I apologize. But mistakes happen. Game's pretty much over though, since we are finally capping the A cap. They've lost 4 ships, we've lost 2. And yeah, it seems as though the rentals are actually an asset rather than a liability this time. I mean, we are the rental team, and we're winning pretty hard. Sure, I had something a little bit to do with it, with the destroyer. But I mean, our Shima isn't dead, and the CV has been attacking him. So clearly, something... it's not quite as simple as, oh, we have rentals, we're gonna lose. This is gonna be a very messy drop. But maybe the Henri plays ball, and she seems to be. Thank you, Henri. And I guess we're gonna go for round 2. So Hakuryu overall in ranked so far actually has been terrible for me. Sure, I can have a fairly large impact on destroyers and even other ships at times, but often what I find is that due to the fact that people group up and will general gameplay by our team, I find it a lot more difficult to actually win consistently with Hakuryu because, or any CV actually, because I simply don't have the control over my team as I do with other ships. And what I mean by that is that as another ship, I can, I don't know what you'd call it, inspire my teammates to go into a certain direction. If I am a battleship and I push into B fairly early here, quite many of my allies are going to be happily, maybe not quite coming to B with me, but they'll be like, I don't know, 5 kilometers behind me. Whereas if I'm a CV, I have zero control over anything like that. That's not a great drop, but planes were gonna go down, so I had to just click the button. And that's why I find that CVs just haven't been that great for me, in ranked anyway. Because I simply don't have the control over my teammates. I can impact the enemy team quite significantly, but that's not quite the same thing. Because if your team does something stupid where they're too aggressive, or for example they spread out too much or anything like that, well, I can't really correct that with the CV. The CV can do quite a bit of damage, but damage per minute on a CV, in my opinion, even with the current stuff, isn't quite comparable to what a battleship could do in a good position. So it's very difficult to like rescue a game where you're a few ships behind as a CV compared to a battleship. At least from my experience. Maybe I simply just don't know how to play CVs well. You know, that's a possibility too, because I definitely would agree with you that my dive bombing and torpedo bombing isn't the greatest. I'm kinda happy with my rocket planing, but you can't only use rocket planes, unfortunately. This game has been pretty good though, and as you can see, rentals are OP. We've lost only one rental ship so far, and even though I said this GK was out of position before, I did say that he's a good player, and that's because I had him in a game before, and he played really well. And I think he probably played really well this game too. I still think he was out of position, but if the midway doesn't take advantage of it, it doesn't matter. And surprisingly, the Shimakaze that was being attacked by the midway is still alive as well, so I don't know, that's yeah. It seems as though our rentals are much more of an advantage than a disadvantage, and I'm really glad I was completely wrong. And games like this are why you should try your hardest, always, regardless of the situation. I'm gonna mess this drop up. The torpedo bombers aren't gonna arm in time, as you can see. I think they probably even went down before they would have been able to drop anyway, but the first drop of the torpedoes is probably going to hit the midway unless she moves. The reason I launched torpedo bombers instead of, say, dive bombers or rocket planes is because midway has an armored deck and you cannot deal damage to an armored deck with dive bombers or rocket planes. At least not the armored deck of a midway anyway. Or a Hakuryu. You can on the Audacious, but not on the midway and Haku. You can hit the sides of a CV though, which maybe should have been a better choice here, since there just isn't enough time. Dive or rocket planes are gonna be slightly faster, but, well, we won. And the rentals were definitely our friends this time. So the title was slightly clickbait, I suppose, because you probably expected something different. I was obviously number 1, but the rental was number 2. Here's 126k damage, and anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I would like to thank the patrons on Patreon. Thank you very much for your continued support, Ikaros, and I hope I'll see you guys next time.